My breath caught. I was standing in my parents' driveway, surrounded by family, by neighbors, by the very people who had watched me grow up. They were all there for the big reveal, the surprise my father had been hinting at for weeks. The air was thick with the scent of barbecue and the low hum of excited whispers. He stood next to my sister, a grand conductor in his own small orchestra of a party. My sister's eyes were sparkling, her smile wide and unblinking. It was the same smile she wore when she got a new pony, a new phone, a new life. And I knew, in the deep hollow of my stomach, what was coming. The red bow on the hood of the brand new silver Lexus SUV was so big it looked like it was a prop from a TV show. It was perfect. A perfect gift for a perfect daughter. My father beamed. He boomed my sister's name, and the crowd erupted in a chorus of claps and cheers. My sister squealed, her face buried in my father's shoulder. And then, he turned to me. The smile was still there, but it was different now. A little smaller, a little tighter. He held out a crumpled gift bag. It was the kind you get from the dollar store. I reached in and pulled out a small glass coin jar. There was a sticker on the bottom, a tiny price tag, $4. Silence. The applause died. A hush fell over the crowd. I felt a dozen eyes on me, then on the coin jar, then back to my face. My mother gave a nervous laugh. "It's for your savings, honey," she said, her voice thin and high. "Your father thought it was a thoughtful gift. He knows how hard you've been working." The words felt like a slap. My sister giggled, her hand on her new car's door handle. My father nodded, still smiling, still looking at me like I was a problem he was trying to solve. My face felt hot. My hands were shaking. I looked from the coin jar to the giant red bow, to the gleaming new car that cost more than I made in a year. The contrast was a punch to the gut, a final public testament to what I had always known. My parents had favored my sister always. This wasn't a surprise. This was a statement. A humiliation for the record. I didn't say a word. I just stood there, holding the little glass jar, the sound of the party fading into a low, buzzing static. My father cleared his throat. "Well, aren't you going to say something, honey?" he asked, a hint of steel in his voice. I looked at him. I looked at my mother. I looked at my sister, who was now sitting in the driver's seat of her new car, posing for pictures. And then, without a word, without a single sound, I turned and walked away. My old car was parked at the curb, its worn paint and dented bumper a stark contrast to the new vehicle in the driveway. The key fob in my hand felt heavy. I got in, started the engine, and put the car in reverse. My father's shouts were muffled. My mother was calling my name. I ignored them all. I drove away from the driveway, from the party, from the people who had just watched me get a $4 coin jar while my sister got a $65,000 car. The feeling wasn't sadness. It wasn't even anger. It was something else. It was a cold, final clarity. As I pulled onto the main road, I watched the flashing red taillights of my old car in the rearview mirror, driving away from the house and the party, forever. I drove home in a daze, the little coin jar rattling in the passenger seat. My apartment felt cold and empty when I walked in. I put the jar on the kitchen counter. It felt so small, so insignificant. A $4 jar for a lifetime of being told I wasn't quite enough. My phone buzzed on the counter. A text from my sister. "Still can't believe Dad got me that car. Thanks for coming to the party, even if you were kinda quiet." I didn't reply. I just stared at the screen, the words a fresh twist of the knife. I sank onto my couch, the silence of my apartment a stark contrast to the celebratory noise I had just left. I closed my eyes and the memories started to flood back. There was the time I won the state science fair in high school. My parents took me out for ice cream. That same week, my sister got a new car because she passed her driver's test. She got a party, too. There was the time I got my dream job. They said, "That's nice, honey." A month later, they threw my sister a huge party for getting engaged. A photographer was hired. A 5-tier cake was ordered. I was always the one to celebrate my own victories, while her milestones became family events. I told myself this time would be different. I'd spent months planning a trip for them, a surprise weekend getaway to thank them for everything. I wanted to prove I was grateful, that I was a good daughter. But the trip was just a distraction, a way to get me out of the way for the big surprise. My phone buzzed again, this time with a new email notification. I'd been ignoring it all day. I picked it up, and the screen lit up with the subject line, "Vet bill overdue." My stomach dropped. I opened the email. It was a bill for my cat, Milo. He had an emergency procedure a few weeks ago. The number on the screen blurred, a shocking amount I'd been counting on my next bonus to cover. That bonus money was now gone. I had spent it on that fun family trip my parents had insisted on, the one they had orchestrated to get me out of town while they planned the surprise. A bitter laugh escaped my lips. They hadn't just given my sister a car. They had used my own generosity to finance her celebration, leaving me with a mountain of debt. My career, my future, my financial stability, it was all now complicated by this one act of blatant favoritism. The coin jar on the counter seemed to mock me, a symbol of their pity, a gesture so small it was an insult. I looked at the vet bill again, the numbers sharp and unforgiving. The humiliation from the party was one thing, but this was a whole new level of betrayal. It was about more than a car. It was about my livelihood. And I had a feeling this was just the beginning. I set the phone down and stared at the empty screen, the notification for the bill still flashing. I had no idea what to do next. But I knew one thing. I couldn't just let this go. My parents' text messages started a few hours after I got home. They were a slow, methodical drip of gaslighting. First, a simple "Did you make it home okay?" Followed by "We're worried about you." Then, the guilt started. "Your sister is so sad you didn't stay." I held my phone in my hand, the screen glowing. I was a puppet, and my parents were pulling the strings. I had spent my entire life trying to earn their love, and it had gotten me nothing but a $4 coin jar and a mountain of debt. My thumb hovered over the reply button. This time, I wasn't going to let them win. My sister's text was next. She was gloating, complaining about how I was ruining everything. "It's like you're jealous or something. You're so selfish, always making everything about you." The word selfish hit me like a physical blow. I had always been the selfish one, the ungrateful one. When I got a scholarship, they said I was being selfish for leaving home. When I worked 2 jobs to pay my own way through college, they said I was being selfish for not spending more time with the family. And now, for this. My fingers flew across the keyboard. It was the first time I had ever pushed back. The vet bill for Milo is $3,500. I was going to use my bonus to pay it, but I spent that on the trip you insisted on, I wrote. "A trip you used to hide the fact that you were giving my sister a car. I got a coin jar. Don't you dare call me ungrateful." I hit send. My heart hammered against my ribs. It was a small rebellion, but it was a rebellion nonetheless. The reply was almost immediate. It wasn't my mom. It was my father. "You need to get over yourself. We gave you what you needed. Your sister needed a car. Are you really going to complain about a thoughtful gift? You are so ungrateful." He had said the word again. Ungrateful. It was the family's favorite weapon. I met my sister's fiancé, Chris, for coffee. I hadn't planned on telling him everything, but the words just poured out of me. He listened without judgment, a small, knowing smile on his face. "I saw what happened," he said, his voice quiet. "Your parents they're complicated." That was an understatement. He was an accountant, a compliance officer. I'd always felt a quiet understanding with him. He saw the world in numbers and rules, and I'd always respected that. He looked at his phone for a moment, then back at me. "Your dad, he's not who he pretends to be. He's always been more concerned with image than reality." His words felt like a lifeline. Like I wasn't crazy for thinking something was wrong. My phone buzzed again, a new message. It wasn't my parents or my sister. It was Chris. "I know this is going to sound crazy, but I was in the car the other day. I saw a document in the glove compartment, but he grabbed it before I could read it. It was a car title, but something was off. Keep a lookout. Your dad's lying about a lot more than he's telling you." The message hung in the air. The car title. I hadn't even thought about it, but a new thought started to form. What if the car wasn't a gift at all? What if it was something else? Something darker. I felt a cold chill run down my spine. But it wasn't from the coffee shop's air conditioning. It was from the quiet promise of a truth I was about to uncover. The silence from my parents was a trap. I knew it. They were waiting for me to apologize, to back down, to be the good little daughter who took her $4 jar and was grateful for it. But I wasn't that girl anymore. I was still reeling from the vet bill and my father's hateful texts when my phone buzzed with a new notification. It was from our family's private Facebook group. My mother had made a post. My stomach clenched. I knew what was coming. The post was long. The words were flowery and filled with fake grief. "My heart is just broken," she wrote. "We tried to give our daughter a thoughtful gift, and she was so unfeeling. It's so hard when a child is so bitter and can't see all the love you've given them." She had attached a photo of herself looking tearful, with my father's arm around her. It was a carefully crafted performance, a plea for sympathy, a total lie. I felt a hot wave of anger surge through me. But I didn't just feel it. I watched it play out in real time. The comments came in a flood. "Sending love to you both. She'll come around. Don't let her ungratefulness get you down." They were all there, the aunts, the cousins, the family friends, all chiming in with their platitudes and heart emojis. They were all on my parents' side. They were all against me. I scrolled through the comments, my heart sinking lower with each passing second. This wasn't just a family dispute anymore. This was a public trial, and I was being found guilty without even getting to speak. My sister's comment was a single word: "Wow." It was all she needed to say. It felt like a final blow. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just felt a cold, chilling calm settle over me. The public shaming had done its work. It had crushed my initial anger and replaced it with a quiet, fierce resolve. They wanted a public narrative? I would give them one. But it wouldn't be the one they wanted. I was no longer fighting for their love or their approval. I was fighting for the truth. And I was going to prove it. Just then, my phone buzzed with a new message. It was from Chris, my sister's fiancé, the compliance officer. "He's using you as a shield," the message read. "The car isn't what it seems. Your parents aren't even the ones paying for it. Look for the line holder on the title." My mind raced. The car title. I hadn't even thought about it. My parents had given me a gift that had no strings attached, a $4 jar, and they had given my sister a $65,000 car that might not even be theirs. I didn't know what it meant, but I knew that this was the piece of the puzzle I was looking for. I took a screenshot of Chris's message. This was my proof. This was my first step toward revenge. I was no longer alone in this fight. My mom's text came in with a little chime. "Please, honey, can we just talk? I'm making your favorite lasagna for dinner on Friday. Let's put this all behind us." Her words dripped with false hope. She thought a simple meal could erase the public humiliation, the public slander, and the cold, hard reality of my new financial stressor. It was an olive branch made of razor wire. I didn't reply. Instead, I sat at my laptop, the screen a stark white canvas in my dim apartment. I was done reacting. It was time to become strategic. Chris's text, the one that mentioned the car title, was a turning point. It had given me a new lens, a new objective. I wasn't trying to prove I was worthy of their love anymore. I was trying to prove they were liars. As an accountant, I knew where to look. I started with public records. I searched for the new car. It was listed: the purchase date, the vehicle identification number, and the names of the owners. It was a good starting point, but it was just that. A start. I remembered something else my dad had me sign a few months ago. He said it was a simple document for my inheritance. He needed my signature to clear up some estate paperwork. I remember thinking it was strange, but I trusted him. That trust was a mistake. I spent hours searching my email for the original document. I knew I had signed it digitally. I was looking for a needle in a haystack of spam and old work documents, but I found it. It was a PDF, a long, convoluted document with a signature line. I opened it, and the blood drained from my face. It wasn't an inheritance document. It was a loan agreement for the full cost of the Lexus. A massive, high-interest loan. And my name was on the signature line. Not my parents'. Not my sister's. Mine. I had unknowingly signed away my financial future for a car I didn't own, for a sister who didn't appreciate it, and for parents who had been lying to me for years. It was a loan my father had taken out in my name, and the collateral was my sister's new car. My sister's car was technically a gift to me, but it was just an empty vessel of debt. They had no intention of paying it back. They had been planning to stick me with the bill all along. The car title Chris had seen in the glove compartment, it made perfect sense now. It was under my name, with the bank listed as the line holder. He hadn't just seen a car title. He had seen proof of a massive financial fraud. I found a second document in my email, a premium insurance policy, invoice with my name on it, for an insurance plan on the new car. My parents had been making me pay for everything, even the insurance on the car they had given to my sister. I sat there, staring at the screen. The quiet hum of my computer was the only sound in the room. I took a deep breath. I downloaded all the documents, the loan agreement, the car title, the insurance invoice. I put them all in a new, password-protected folder on my computer, away from prying eyes. I was no longer a victim. I was a meticulous accountant with a case to build. The ticking clock was now my friend. Their fake celebratory dinner was my deadline. I was going to expose them, and I was going to do it in front of everyone. The celebratory dinner for my sister was at a busy Italian restaurant. The air was thick with the scent of garlic and wine. My parents were smiling. My sister was glowing. They looked like a perfect family. When I walked in, my father's smile faltered. My mother's face tightened. My sister whispered something to her fiancé, Chris, but he just gave me a small, almost imperceptible nod. I didn't sit down at the table. I stood at the head, a plain manila folder in my hands. The room fell quiet. The chattering of other diners, the clinking of glasses, it all seemed to fade away. It was just me, my family, and the heavy, electric silence. "I have something for you," I said, my voice low and steady. I didn't look at my sister. I looked directly at my parents. My father's eyes narrowed. My mother clutched her wine glass. I reached into the folder and pulled out a single sheet of paper. "This is the car title for the Lexus," I said. "I had a copy made." I laid it on the table. My mother squinted at it. "What is this?" she hissed. My father leaned in, his face turning pale. He saw the name on the title, my name. The silence in the restaurant was now deafening. "And this," I said, pulling out another document. "This is the loan agreement, the one you had me sign for my inheritance. It's a loan for the full price of the car, in my name. It was never a gift to my sister. It was a debt. A massive debt you planned to put on me. My sister's car was just collateral. A very expensive, very red herring." My mother's hand flew to her mouth. My father's jaw was clenched. He was shaking his head, a furious denial in his eyes. "This is insane," he spat out. "This is a lie. You're just trying to ruin this for your sister." "No," I said. "This isn't a lie. I have proof." I pulled out the final document, a printed bank ledger. It showed a series of wire transfers from my parents' bank account to a company I had never heard of. It was my sister's fiancé, Chris's company. He was a compliance officer. He worked for the bank, and he had been watching them for months. The first transfer was for the down payment on the Lexus. The second was for the insurance. The third, a massive transfer, was for a loan that they had taken out to cover a family debt. My parents had used me as a shield to hide their own financial problems. They were broke, and they had been planning to use my name and my good credit to bail them out. My father stood up, his face a mask of rage. "You did this to yourself," he yelled. "You're so ungrateful. We did this for the family." Just then, a figure walked up to our table. It was Chris, but he was wearing his legal uniform, a suit and a tie with a small, discreet pin on his lapel. He worked for the bank that held the loan. He had been investigating my family for months. And he wasn't alone. Another person, a woman, walked up to the table. She was my sister's mentor, a high-ranking lawyer. She smiled a tight, cold smile and said, "We've been watching your parents for a while now. They've been committing fraud, using my mentee as a pawn. The truth has a way of coming out." My parents stood there, their faces white, their lies finally catching up to them. The crowd was silent, all eyes on them. I stood there, calm and powerful, no longer the underestimated daughter. My father stood there, speechless. My mother had her face in her hands, her shoulders shaking. My sister looked at her mentor, then at her fiancé, then back at me, the confusion on her face morphing into dawning horror. The jig was up. The truth, in the form of a car title and a stack of financial documents, had just brought down their entire house of cards. They were no longer the proud, generous parents. They were just two people who had used their own daughter as a pawn. The crowd around our table had gone from silent to a low hum of whispers and shocked gasps. I looked at my parents, but I didn't feel rage or triumph. I just felt tired. I reached into the manila folder and pulled out the car keys to the Lexus. They were heavy in my hand. I placed them on the table next to the car title. "It's your car, sis," I said, my voice calm. "I'm not keeping it. The loan, however, is a different story. The bank is going to contact you both very soon." My father's eyes bulged. He opened his mouth to protest, but no words came out. He was completely powerless. I reached into the folder one last time and pulled out a small envelope. It was for me. A check for a new apartment. I had paid the first month's rent and the security deposit just that morning. I placed the envelope on the table and looked at my parents one last time. "You can keep the coin jar," I said. "I don't need it anymore. I'm done saving for a family that doesn't see my worth." And then, I turned and walked away. I walked past the stunned faces of my aunts and uncles, past the whispering crowd, past the door, and into the night. My old car was parked across the street. I didn't look back. I just got in and drove, the city lights reflecting off my windshield. I was free. I was finally, truly free. Later that night, I was sitting in my new, empty apartment. The only furniture was a single air mattress. I ordered a pizza and waited for it to arrive. When the doorbell rang, it wasn't the delivery driver. It was Chris. He had a couple of takeout containers in his hands, and a 6-pack of beer. He smiled, a genuine, warm smile. We sat on the floor of my new apartment, eating pizza and drinking beer. The conversation was easy. We talked about his work, my work, and his upcoming wedding. He never once mentioned what had happened at the restaurant. I realized then that I wasn't alone anymore. I had found my chosen family. He took a bite of pizza and looked at me. "That car and that jar," he said. "They were just objects. The real gift was this new life." I smiled, and for the first time in a long time, it was a real smile. I had lost a family, but I had gained a new one. I had lost a car, but I had gained my freedom. I looked at my phone, the screen dark, and I realized I had cut the last cord. I was no longer defined by my past. I was defined by my future. A future I was going to build myself. The screen faded to black with a simple closing question. "What would you have done?"